Hello, everyone. I'm Judge Penny Wolfgang. It's St. Patrick's Day weekend in Western New York, so we invited one of the most famous Irishmen in our hometown for a visit, Kevin O'Connell. And from City Hall to County Hall, there was one political reporter who covered it all. Find out who. That and more on this edition of The Big Picture. Hi, welcome to the program. You notice I'm wearing green today, Irish green, in honor of our special guest. We know him from his decades-long career on television, from Buffalo to Los Angeles and back to Buffalo, fortunately for us. So, as we celebrate St. Patrick's Day weekend, we welcome Hall of Fame broadcaster and dear friend, Kevin O'Connell.
Judge, it's good to see you.
It's so good to see you,
Yeah,
Kevin.
this is also a show called How Do You Make the Irishman on the Panel Feel Real Guilty? There's your green, all right? There's your little leprechaun. I've got brown on, so don't adjust your sets.
Well, I did it on purpose, like I said, in your honor. So before we talk about things Irish and green, let's have a little update on how you've been doing since we last saw you on television every day, every night during the
Well, I'll be honest with you. I am doing very, very well health-wise, which I guess is always the first order of business. I spent a couple of years with the Catholic Health Organization and left there a couple of years ago. Haven't been on Buffalo television in quite a few years. My hair was brunette the last time I was on the air. But, and since then, we have opened, and I say we, my son and his mom and myself, some restaurants in the Cleveland area. More of a deli type format. So Carolyn and I have been doing a lot of traveling back and forth because Kevin Jr. lives there now. And that's pretty much taken up a lot of the time. I'm doing some writing, some speeches, you know, around the community. You know how that game goes, Penny. And I think one of the nicest parts about it is I don't have deadlines right now, you know, and I see a lot of people in the community going to various events, whether it's maybe emceeing a dinner or whatever. So you kind of keep that going because that keeps you going. You know how that is.
Well, that's sort of what we wanted to talk a little bit about, your legacy here in Buffalo, your family, because like I said, we decided, John and I said, let's talk to the most well-known Irish family that we could think of for St. Patrick's Day, and it's you.
Let me and please excuse my rudeness here, because the judge did mention something to me before we started this program. And back when her late husband, Michael, who was a dear friend and a really nice guy, before Penny Wolfgang became Judge Penny Wolfgang, my late dad, George D. O'Connell, who was the city comptroller for years, was a very well-known member of the community in lots of different things. I can remember we would go out campaigning and we would do Irish Day, Italian Day, Polish Day, and possibly another event all in the same day, and go out and mix with people. But before she took on her candidacy, it was kind of like going and visiting the maestro. And her and Michael and my dad got together to kind of scope out what a campaign would be like, what her candidacy would be like, and the good news was it was successful in both areas. So I'm sorry I'm sharing that, because you probably did that in confidence, but that answers the question right there. You know, it's funny, somebody would say, and maybe you had the same situation because you've done all three. You've done public service, you have actually been a member of the judiciary, and now on television, and somebody would say, what was the best advice your mom or dad ever gave you before you started? And I was in the TV business for over almost 50 years, and then radio with that as well. And I said, they never told me anything, but what my parents allowed us as kids, and we had 7 in our family. They didn't get out very much. They stayed home a lot. What they did was they let us look at their life and how they dealt with good news, bad news, situations that needed to be solved, in getting involved in the community. So I think if you could take the best advice, just step back and kind of put them under a little microscope and take a peek at how your parents did it, because I guarantee you that's the best teacher you're going to get. So they didn't have to say anything. they just did it. And kids, as you know with Robin, they're sponges, you know, and they soak up all this information. And that's what makes her the young mom and wonderful woman, a businesswoman she is today. Wouldn't you agree?
No, she doesn't listen to a word I say.
Okay, well, that's why she's the host and I'm not.
No, totally not, whatever I say. But she did listen to Michael, by the way, since we're on the subject. We're talking about Irish and St. Patrick's Day a little bit. So first of all, what did your family have traditions for St. Patrick's Day?
You know, we did in the sense that it was a neighborhood thing. With us, it wasn't necessarily the overall community, it was where we were at the time. And I remember mostly growing up in North Buffalo. And when we were on Voorhees Avenue in North Buffalo, and it would be a time where all the neighbors, and you knew everyone. I'll share one quick story. When Mom was getting up a little bit in years, we started at one end of the street one day, Penny, in the car. And she was having this thing about, oh, my memory's not as good as it used to be. And I said, Mother, your memory is fine. And we started with the house at the corner, and this was between Taunton and Parkside. She knew every single family that lived. I said, if you had a bad memory, you wouldn't have remembered any of this. So we got together with all those folks and had pretty much an Irish hoolie at the house, you know, and you would have obviously all of the wonderful foods and beverages and a lot of fun, a lot of laughs and a lot of good times.
Now, you've been in a lot of parades and attended a lot and appeared in a lot. Yeah, me too. You know?
Yeah, yes, you have.
Oh gosh, tell us.
Never the Grand Marshal. My dad was never the Grand Marshal of the Irish. Well, yeah, it's life. Life goes on. Every year I enjoy watching to see who's going to be the Grand Marshal and a little bit of the story about where do they fit in with this. But it's probably because of the fact that we didn't spend a ton of time in the First Ward. That was not necessarily our stomping grounds, okay? We were more kind of the North Buffalo and in the city. But every year we would go, you can count it because the first car up there was the Bishops, and we went through a lot of those. And it was just a great time. Yeah. With the blackthorns and everything. You know, it's a day of just great festivities, and the crowds when you go up Delaware and Allen and Chippewa, I mean, the crowds were humongous on a nice day.
Yeah, tell me about, everyone must ask you the same thing. Tell me about the weather. Tell me how it's good. In the past, how it's been and how it's going to be now.
Well, being semi-retired from that part of my world, I'll defer to the current meteorologist. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm a Catholic, but I think the thing that I remember the most, of course, you would love the good weather days. You would go down there, and I think you would always know because on the 11 o'clock news that night or the 6 o'clock news, after they scraped some of the people off the pavement, we would, you know, get a police estimate of how many people were down there today, and it would be tons. I mean, tens of thousands. The colder days were a little tougher, and I'll tell you, the day before the Delaware Parade, and I know you were there, in the valley, down in the, you know, you would go through the valley down the foot of Seneca, South Park area, and walking through the old neighborhood parade. Peg Overdorf was the head of the society, and every year we had a great time with them.
I have pictures. I couldn't find it. I told John I was going to try to find it, of me walking in the parade with the mayor and some other dignitaries. And in this picture, there's so much snow coming down that you can see. I'm wearing something dark, and there's like snowflakes and snow in my hair.
You know, I wish, and I would like to have been able to put my hands on it. There is a picture of you and myself, Alan Costantini, and John Beard. And we were at the parade because it was by City Hall. You could see that metal plate on the building, City Hall. Right. We were going to, you know, find our spot in the parade or whatever. And I'll never forget, you were all bundled up. You had your earmuffs on. You were ready. You were ready for a cold day. We've had a little bit of each. This year, I think March has just been a curveball. So yeah, I think we're going to be dealing probably with another cold one over the weekend as well. And of course, being on Friday was great.
Were you here during the blizzard that we just had at Christmas?
Oh, sure.
And I know you were, of course, during the blizzard of '77.
Yeah.
how did, you know, how they
Well, you know,
compare?
there was a lot of comparisons, and I don't know what one or two line items you're going to say. Well, how many people passed away in '77 versus this one? Well, yeah, this one had more, but how about the inconvenience? And we hadn't done '77 before. Remember, at least now we have a little bit of history we can flash back, and now there are signs saying escape route and all this stuff, you know, in the city of Buffalo. So at least we had something to go with, Penny. But I think '77 was a brand new ball game for all of us. We didn't know. I was stranded at Channel 4, WBEN at the time, for 4 days. And of course, here's Carolyn with a relatively new baby at home.
Oh my gosh.
I'll remember the first words that he said after I finally had one of the cameramen drive me back to my home 4 days later. It's Dad, and he's got fresh food. It's like, you know, here's this kid who hasn't, you know, had much, certainly in terms of a father, for a few days. But I think both have had, they changed how we did it. It was a teaching moment. I guess that's the big phrase.
Yeah, which is
and
good.
I think this year it surprised a lot of people how heavy it was. And then in '77, it was just, when is this going to end? You know, when, you know, and we just didn't know.
I know. Now we want to talk about the Irish American community, because, like we said, we're using you for our prototype, our example, our Citizen of the Year. Tell me about the Irish American community here in Western New York.
Well, we, of course, the Irish have a great history, not only in the labor movement and in the founding of many parts of this country, but I think the Irish also have made a huge mark in this community in more ways than one. Medically, in terms of finding solutions to medical problems, we have a very good group that do an awful lot to make sure the rest of the community is treated equally. We have a lot of charity work that we do as well. And I think one of the things that I have enjoyed the most have been some of the traditions that the Irish have. We're known for that. I think that's part of the game. And I'll never forget that out west we had a thing called the Rose of Tralee. There's a place called Tralee, Ireland. And a rose is the young lady. So the rose would go to Tralee, have this huge pageant, much like a Miss America or a Miss Teen America. So, and I mean, there were hundreds of young ladies would participate in this. And I was asked by the Irish American Association of Southern California, would we be one of the chaperones to go to Tralee? Well, let me tell you something. That's like, you know, asking me would I like another chocolate chip cookie. I mean, I'm all over that thing. And we had a wonderful trip there, learned an awful lot about the history. That's one thing, and I think all nationalities, no matter what it may be, we have a plethora of wonderful internationalism in the Western New York area now, and it was proof that when I went there, because one of the great heroes of Ireland was Daniel O'Connell. And
oh my gosh.
And of course, everyone had his statue and pictures around. So, I mean, there isn't enough time in this show. And I know John and the guys are watching in the other room. There's so much to talk about. But I think to live the Irish experience, to live the Irish lifestyle, two things. Number one, learn a bit about the history, important. But secondly, if you have a chance, go there. Because you will love, when you land at Shannon Airport, there is every color, everything you're wearing, and every imaginable color of green as you make your final approach. And it's a country that's happy to get up in the morning and they let you know it. And if you ask for their opinion, hang on, fasten your seatbelt, you're going to get it.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much, Kevin O'Connell, for talking to us today and joining us on our
Happy St. Patrick's Day
show.
And to Robin as well. Thanks, Penny.
Thank you so much. The Big Picture will be right back after this.